God always had a plan for us. God's always had a plan for us from the very beginning, not just from Abraham, but from in the garden with Adam and Eve, right? He didn't set this up, like again, with that Abraham relationship with God was really interesting. Like God basically plucks this guy out and chooses Abraham. He's like, you, Abraham, cool. You're going to be my guy. Not only am I going to bless you, I'm going to turn you into not just a nation, I'm going to turn you into the nation, my nation. I'm going to be your God, you're going to be my people. That's the relationship God had with Abraham. It was very unearned. You know, I mean, if you read the story of Abraham, Abraham screwed up a bunch. Like, my man tried to, a king came to Abraham, and as they were traveling, and he's got a wife named Sarah at that point. She changed her name. So Sarah, back in the day, what happens a lot of times is if you were married and you were encountered by a powerful man and he wanted your wife, he'd just kill you and then he'd take her as your wife, right? That's kind of what would happen. So Abraham's a wuss. He's scared about this, which, you know, he's not a wuss. I would be scared too. I would probably do this too. So he's scared about all this as the king approaches him and he's like, hey, is that your wife? He's like, nope, that's my sister. And the king's like, okay, great, it's a sister. And he goes to like take her for a wife. And then God's like, what are you doing to this king? And the king's almost gets smoked, and he goes back to Abraham. He's like, what are you doing? This is your wife, not that. So it's a big thing. So all that's to say, he screwed up a lot. Abraham wasn't perfect. So the relationship between God and Abraham was interesting, but it was definitely blessed. And we see part of this relationship in verse 8. So in verse 8 it says this, and the scriptures foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, and this is a little footnote here, that little b, in you shall all the nations be blessed. So in your Bible, you know, you'll see those little like notes, those A or B's or numbers, stuff like that through your Bible. Nod your heads if you know what I'm talking about. So those are called footnotes, okay? And footnotes they're like little letters you can put in the text or in line with the text, and they have extra information at the very bottom. A lot of times, especially in the New Testament, the back portion of your Bible, a lot of times they'll be in there to reference, if you see a quote, where is this being quoted from? Okay, so this quoted piece, in you shall the nations be blessed. This isn't Paul saying this. This is God saying that to Abraham. So where does that happen? That footnote points us to Genesis chapter 12. So in Genesis chapter 12, 2 through 3, this is God talking to Abraham. Okay, God talking to Abraham. He says this, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. That's that relationship I was telling you about. God came to Abraham and said this to him for no reason other than the fact that God chose Abraham. In verse 9, we see this thought finished up. It says, so then, those who are of faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. God's always had a plan for us. From the very beginning, from the time he talked with Abraham to even before that. God didn't panic when he saw that we screwed up. When he saw that we messed up, when he saw that we weren't perfect. He knew that going in. When Adam and Eve took of the tree in the garden, he wasn't surprised. When Abraham messed up time and time again, when these kings that God put in place messed up time and time again, when his people turned against him time and time again, God wasn't surprised. He didn't panic and be like, oh God, what am I going to do? Great. Jesus, you go down there and fix everything? Great. Awesome. Great. And put a Band-Aid on it and figure it out. That's not what God's plan was. God's known from the beginning that Jesus was always the plan. At all times. From the very beginning in the garden, God knew Jesus was the answer. When he interacted with Abraham, he knew Jesus was the answer. When people turned from him time and time again, he knew that Jesus was the plan. So from the very beginning, God had a plan for you and me. He's always had a plan for us. The next observation is